The notice board outside Dry Creek's general store had seen better days. Paint peeled from its edges like bark from a dying pine, and the autumn wind of 1884 made the posted papers dance their slow death rattle. Abel Hart stood before it, hat in hand, reading his own handwriting for the 100th time. Mail order bride needed for remote ranch. Widower, one dependent. Passage paid. Christian household. Serious inquiries only. 6 months. 6 months since he'd hammered that notice up with 3 bent nails and a prayer he wasn't sure God was listening to anymore. The few responses that trickled in through the postal service had dried up by August. Now, October painted the Wyoming sky the color of old iron, and Abel wondered if he'd been a fool to hope. The stagecoach wheezed to a stop behind him, dust swirling like ghosts around its wheels. Abel didn't turn. Dry Creek saw coaches twice a week, bringing supplies, taking away dreams. Nothing new there. "Sir?" The voice was low, careful, like someone testing ice before crossing. Abel turned. She stood beside the coach in a black dress that had seen too many washings, clutching a carpet bag small enough to hold a life's worth of giving up. Her face wasn't young. Crow's feet mapped years of squinting into hard suns. But it wasn't old either, just worn. The way good leather gets worn. Useful worn, not ruined worn. "Ma'am?" Abel nodded, still not sure why she'd addressed him. "I'm looking for Abel Hart." She didn't smile, didn't simper, just stated it like fact. His stomach dropped. "I'm Hart. May Delaney." She shifted the carpet bag to her left hand, but didn't offer to shake. "I wrote about your notice 3 weeks back." Abel's mind raced through the letters. 2 from San Francisco, 1 from Denver, another from some place in Missouri he couldn't pronounce. None signed May Delaney. Then he remembered. The one with water stains on the envelope, postmarked from Nebraska. Short. Direct. Widowed. No prospects. Can work. No questions asked if same courtesy extended. "I, Mrs. Delaney." He crushed his hat brim, smoothed it, crushed it again. "I wasn't expecting. Your letter didn't say when. Sold what I had for the ticket. Figured arriving was better than more writing." Her eyes, gray as morning fog, stayed steady on his face. Not challenging. Just watching. Measuring. The coach driver hefted a trunk from the boot, grunting, "This yours, lady?" "No." May glanced at her carpet bag. "This is all." The driver shrugged and hauled the trunk toward the mercantile. May stood there in the settling dust, waiting, not expectant, just waiting, like a horse that's learned standing still hurts less than fighting the bit. "My wagon's at the livery," Abel heard himself say. "Ranch is 2 hours out. Gets cold after sundown. I've been cold before." They walked through Dry Creek's 3 blocks of ambition, the mercantile, the saloon, the church with its steeple pointing at promises. May's boots clicked steady on the boardwalk. No hurry, no dawdle, just forward motion. At the livery. Abel's ranch hand, Jorge, was loading salt blocks into the wagon bed. He tipped his hat at May, eyebrows rising slightly at Abel. Abel introduced them with minimum words. Jorge had the grace not to ask questions, just shifted the supplies to make room. "Luke's at the ranch," Abel said as he helped May up to the wagon seat. Her hand was calloused, strong, working hands. "My boy, there's things you should know." 16, May said. It wasn't a question. The notice said dependent, figured that age or thereabouts. "He can't walk, not since the accident 2 years back. Wagon rolled, caught his legs wrong. Doctor said the spine." Abel's voice roughed out. He cleared it. "He uses a chair I built. Gets around some, but..." May settled her carpetbag at her feet. "Can he feed himself?" "Yes." "Dress himself?" "Mostly. Boots give him trouble." "Does he read?" Abel blinked. "Reads everything he can get. Books are... well, they're his legs now, I suppose." May nodded once. "Then we'll manage." The wagon rolled out of Dry Creek as the sun started its slide toward the mountains. Abel wanted to fill the silence with promises about the house being sound, the well running clear, the cellar stocked for winter. Instead, he matched May's quiet, letting the creak of wheels and clop of hooves speak what needed speaking. An hour out, May broke the silence. "Your wife, how long?" 3 years come Christmas. Fever took her quick. Abel kept his eyes on the road. "Yours?" 18 months. Railroad accident. They brought him home in pieces." Her voice stayed level, but her hands tightened on the carpet bag. "Had a daughter, too, earlier. Cholera." Abel nodded. Some griefs were too big for sorry. The ranch appeared as the sun touched the mountain peaks, a collection of honest buildings arranged around a dirt yard. The main house squatted solid against the wind, smoke threading from its chimney. Abel had built it to last, not to impress. Log walls, shake roof, a porch that wrapped 3 sides like sheltering arms. Luke sat on that porch, a book spread across his lap. Even from a distance, Abel could see the tension in his son's shoulders. The boy had argued against the mail-order bride notion from the start. "We're doing fine," he'd insisted, though the house grew dirtier and their meals plainer with each passing month. Abel stopped the wagon at the porch steps. Luke didn't look up from his book. "Luke." Abel kept his voice neutral. "This is Mrs. Delaney." Now Luke raised his head. His face, Abel's jawline, his mother's eyes stayed carefully blank. "Ma'am?" May climbed down from the wagon without waiting for help. She approached the porch steps, stopped at the bottom, looking up at Luke. Not at the chair, at Luke. "May I?" She gestured to the space beside him. Luke shrugged, still wary. May climbed the steps, smoothed her skirt, and sat on the bench his mother used to favor. Close enough for conversation, far enough for comfort. She looked at the book in Luke's lap. "Scott?" "Cooper." Luke's voice held surprise. "The Prairie. Read it on the way from Nebraska. Slower than watching it happen, but passes the time." May leaned back slightly. "Though he does go on about noble savages and such. Real Indians I've met were just folks trying to get by, same as anybody." Luke's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "That's what I told Pa. He said I was being disrespectful to literature. Sometimes literature needs disrespecting." May stood. "I should help with the supplies." She was halfway down the steps when Luke spoke. "You planning to try and mother me?" May turned. "No. Had my chance at mothering. Buried it. I'm here to keep house and maybe keep your PA from talking to the cattle. You need something. You ask. You don't. I'll leave you be." Luke studied her for a long moment, then nodded and returned to his book. The house smelled of smoke and leather and the particular loneliness of men trying to cope. May set her carpetbag by the door and surveyed the kitchen. "Not dirty, exactly, just forgotten. Dishes done but stacked crooked. Floor swept but corners missed. The kind of tending that keeps collapse at bay but doesn't invite living." Abel hauled in supplies, piling them on the table. "I'll show you your room. It's small, but..." After supper, May was already rolling up her sleeves. "Stove's warm. Shame to waste it." She found salt pork in the larder, potatoes growing eyes in a bin, onions hanging from the rafters. Nothing fancy, nothing much, but enough. While Abel tended the animals, May carved order from chaos, sliced, seasoned. Set the heavy skillet to heating. A 3-legged dog limped in from somewhere, regarding her with a suspicion of the often kicked. "You got a name?" May asked it. The dog wagged its tail stub cautiously. "Didn't think so. Come on, then." She found a cracked bowl, spooned in some scraps. The dog approached like it expected the food to vanish. May set the bowl by the stove and went back to cooking. The dog ate in gulps, then settled on the rag rug, sighing deep. When Abel and Luke came in for supper, Luke rolling his chair with practiced efficiency, the table was set with the good plates May had found wrapped in newspaper. Nothing fancy, just the dignity of matching dishes and forks all facing the same direction. They ate in silence thick as morning porridge. May didn't try to soften it. Some silences needed to be, like winter needs to be before spring makes sense. Luke cleaned his plate first. "You cook plain." "Yes. Ma used to make things with sauces, French things." "I'm not her." Luke looked at her straight on for the first time. Good. After supper, Abel showed May to the small room off the kitchen. His wife's sewing room once, he explained, voice catching on the word wife. A narrow bed, a dresser, hooks for clothes, a window facing east for morning light. It's fine, May said, setting her carpet bag on the bed. More than, Abel lingered in the doorway. I want to be clear about, that is, the marriage part, the paper part. We can take time, see if we suit, no expectations beyond keeping house. May unpinned her hair, letting it fall in a gray-threaded brown curtain. I buried expectations with my husband. We'll see what grows in their place. Later, the house settled into its night sounds. May lay on the narrow bed, listening. Luke's chair wheels on floorboards above. Abel's heavy tread pacing the parlor. The dog's whimper as it chased rabbits in its sleep. From her carpet bag, she pulled a photograph wrapped in oilcloth. A young woman holding a baby, a man's hand on her shoulder. All three faces blurred with handling. She looked at it by moonlight, then wrapped it again, placed it in the dresser drawer. Tomorrow there would be bread to make, clothes to mend, a boy to not mother, a man to maybe learn to stand beside. Tonight she just lay still and listened to a house, remembering how to breathe with someone new inside it. The dog padded in, looked a question. All right then, May whispered. It curled at the foot of her bed with another deep sigh. Outside, wind combed through prairie grass, carrying the smell of coming snow and distant hope. The sound was almost like whispered prayers, if you believed in such things anymore. May closed her eyes and let it sing her toward morning. The first snow came early that year, dusting the ranch like flour on a baker's board 3 weeks after May's arrival. She stood at the kitchen window, coffee mug warming her hands, watching Abel break ice on the water troughs. His movements were efficient, purposeful, a man who'd learned to work alone and hadn't yet remembered he didn't have to. Behind her, Luke's chair wheels squeaked on the floorboards. She'd oiled them twice, but moisture kept working into the axles. Snow's early, Luke said, rolling to the stove. Won't be the last surprise this winter, I expect. May poured him coffee without asking. 2 sugars, no milk. She'd learned his preferences by watching, not asking. Luke wrapped his hands around the mug. Pa's been out there an hour already. Always works harder when he's thinking too much. May said nothing. In 3 weeks, she'd learned the rhythms of heart men, Abel's pre-dawn rising, his habit of checking every fence post when worried, Luke's way of reading the same page over when his legs pained him, though he'd never admit to pain. "You ever talk about her?" Luke asked suddenly. "My mother?" May turned from the window. "No." "Good." Luke stared into his coffee. "Neither do I." The kitchen door banged open, bringing Abel in a gust of frozen air. Ice crystals clung to his beard. He stomped his boots on the mat May had placed there, a small change he'd accepted without comment. "Chicken coop roof sagging," he announced. "Snow weight, needs bracing before it caves." "I'll help," Luke said immediately. Abel's jaw tightened. "Snow's slick. Your chair." "I said I'll help." Luke's voice carried that particular edge May had come to recognize. Pride fighting limitation. "I'll need lumber from the barn," May interrupted. "Luke knows where you keep the good pieces." Both men looked at her. She kept her expression neutral, pouring Abel coffee like nothing significant had passed. Abel caught on first. "Right. Luke, you sort the lumber. I'll get tools." After they left, May allowed herself a small smile. 3 weeks of careful navigation, learning when to step in, when to fade back. Like learning a new dance where everyone else knew the steps but wouldn't admit they were dancing. She'd started small. Fresh bread cooling when they came in from chores. Abel's work shirts mended without fanfare. A cushion appearing on Luke's chair without explanation. Changes quiet as snowfall. Accumulating until the house felt different without anyone saying why. The dog, she'd named him Biscuit for his color and the way he begged, limped in from his morning patrol. May had reset his leg the second week, ignoring Abel's warning that the dog bit strangers. Biscuit hadn't bitten, just trembled while she worked, then licked her hand after, By noon, the chicken coop stood reinforced, and snow fell steady. Luke had directed lumber selection from the barn doorway while Abel hammered. May brought hot cider out, standing back while they admired their work with the satisfaction of men who'd solved something fixable. At dinner, Luke actually laughed. Abel had been telling about Jorge's nephew trying to ride an unbroken colt, and when he got to the part about the boy landing in the water trough, Luke's laughter burst out sudden as summer thunder. Then, immediately, his face flushed. "Sorry, boy landed so hard, ice broke clean through," Abel continued, voice gentle. "Jorge said he came up swearing in 3 languages. Luke's mouth twitched. "Which 3? "Spanish, English, and what Jorge called the universal language of frozen backsides." This time Luke's laughter came easier. May served stew and said nothing. But inside, something loosened like a knot worked free. Sunday brought clear skies and church bells carrying across the valley. May stood before the small mirror in her room, pinning her hair. The black dress was her best, which wasn't saying much. But clean, pressed, respectable. A knock at her door. "May?" Abel's voice, uncertain. "About church." She opened the door. He stood in his good suit, collar stiff with starch, looking anywhere but at her face. "People will wonder," he said. "About us. What to tell them." "The truth," May said. "That I'm keeping house. Rest is nobody's business yet." Yet? The word hung between them like a question neither was ready to answer. Luke appeared in the hallway, wearing his church clothes. "We going or not? Pastor Williams gets cranky when people come in late." The ride to town passed quiet. Luke sat between them on the wagon seat, his chair folded in the bed. May had learned to help with the chair without making it seem like help, being where needed just as he reached, catching wheels before they caught on edges. Dry Creek's church squatted white and hopeful against the brown landscape. Folks gathered outside, talking weather and cattle prices until the bell called them in. May felt eyes track their arrival, the widower Hart with his crippled boy and the stranger woman. "Morning, Abel." Judge Morrison tipped his hat, eyes curious but kind. "Ma'am?" "This is Mrs. Delaney." Abel said simply, "She's helping at the ranch." May nodded, met gazes steady. Let them wonder. Wonder hurt less than pity or false friendship. Inside, they sat in Abel's usual pew, third from front. Left side, Luke's chair fit at the end. May noticed how other folks had left that space clear, probably for months. Small kindnesses, she thought, the kind that cost nothing but meant everything. Pastor Williams preached on love being patient, love being kind. His voice rolled over familiar words while May watched dust motes dance in colored light from the windows. Beside her, Abel sat rigid as fence posts. Beyond him, Luke followed along in his Bible, finger-tracking lines. "Love is not proud." The pastor read, "It does not boast." May thought of her husband's grave back in Nebraska. The wooden marker probably fallen by now. She'd loved him once. Proud and boastful love that assumed tomorrow was promised. This thing growing careful between her and Abel, if it was growing, felt different, quieter, like plants that root deep before showing green. After service, the church women descended. Mrs. Morrison, Mrs. Clark, others whose names blurred together. They asked careful questions about her journey, her plans. May answered what needed answering, kept the rest. "You must come to quilting circle," Mrs. Clark insisted. "Thursdays at my place. We're making a wedding quilt for the Olsen girl." "I'll consider it," May said, which satisfied without promising. Loading Luke's chair after church, May slipped on ice. She caught herself, but not before sliding ungraceful into Abel's side. He steadied her, hands firm on her arms. For a moment they stood close enough to share breath, close enough to see gold flecks in his brown eyes. "Steady?" he asked. "Yes." But she wasn't sure if she meant her footing or something else entire. That night, she found Luke on the porch despite the cold, book abandoned on his lap. Mind company? She asked. He shrugged, his default response that could mean anything. She sat on the bench, pulling her shawl tight. Stars spread thick overhead. No moon to dim them. Ma used to play piano. Luke said suddenly, evenings, after supper, Chopin, mostly, some Beethoven. May waited. There's a piano in the parlor, covered. Pa can't bear to uncover it, can't bear to move it. Luke's hands clenched on his book. Sometimes I forget what she looked like, but I remember exactly how Moonlight Sonata sounded in her hands. Memory's strange that way. May said, I can't recall my daughter's voice, but I remember how her hair smelled after bath time. Lavender soap. They sat quiet while cold seeped through the boards. I fell today, May said. After church, your PA caught me. I saw. Made me think. How catching someone's just reflexes, mostly, until it isn't. Luke turned to study her profile in starlight. You saying you're falling? I'm saying maybe falling's not the worst thing, if someone's there to catch you. Luke was quiet long enough May wondered if she'd overstepped. Then, he hasn't played fiddle since she died. Used to play while she played piano. Made the walls sing, they said. May stood, knees protesting the cold. Walls can learn to sing again, just takes time. She touched Luke's shoulder light as snowfall. Don't stay out too long. Your hands are already blue. Inside, she paused at the parlor door. A sheet-draped shape hulked in the corner. She lifted one edge, revealing polished mahogany. Ivory keys yellowed with age. Her fingers found middle C by habit, pressed silent. The note hung unplayed in the air. Not yet, she thought, but maybe someday. She covered the piano again and went to bank the fire for morning. Late that night, she woke to sounds from Luke's room. Not crying. Luke didn't cry where anyone might hear. Just the restless sounds of pain that went bone deep on cold nights. She rose, heated water, added willow bark. Knocked soft on his door. I'm fine, came through the wood. Didn't ask if you were. She set the mug outside his door. Tea's here when you want it. Footsteps retreated. After a minute, the door opened. Luke took the mug. Met her eyes. Thanks. That's what family does, May said, then caught herself. That is, yeah, Luke said quietly. Family. He closed the door gentle, but May heard him settle back in bed. Heard the bed ropes ease as pain eased. She returned to her room, but couldn't sleep. Through her window. Snow started again, erasing the day's tracks. By morning, the world would be clean made, ready for new paths. Maybe that's what she was doing here. Not replacing what was lost. Nothing could. But maybe, careful and slow. Helping new things take root in ground once frozen with grief. The dog padded in, settled at her feet with a contented sigh. Somewhere in the house. A board creaked, Abel walking his midnight paths. Soon enough, she thought. She might learn to walk them with him. For now, though, she listened to snow whisper against windows and felt something like hope spreading quiet as morning frost. Beautiful and fragile and worth the risk of melting. The letter arrived on a Tuesday that felt like any other Tuesday, until it wasn't. Jorge brought it from town along with supplies, handing it to Abel with the careful expression of a man delivering news he couldn't read but sensed was heavy. Abel recognized the county seal before opening it. His hands, steady through blizzards and calving season, trembled slightly as he read. May watched from the stove where she was rendering fat for soap. Saw his face change like weather shifting. What is it? Luke asked from the table where he was oiling harness leather. Abel set the letter down slow, like it might explode. County's reviewing the homestead allocation. Something about family status verification for continued claim rights. May wiped her hands on her apron, came to read over his shoulder. The language was legal thick, but the meaning cut clear. Prove family continuity by December 15th or risk forfeiture proceedings? They can't take our land, Luke said, voice rising. We've worked it for 8 years. Law says a claimed homestead needs a family unit maintaining it. Abel's voice stayed level, but May saw the muscle jump in his jaw. When your mother died, you're still family. Luke insisted. I'm still family. A widower and a dependent don't constitute a complete household unit under territorial statute. May read the words aloud, tasting their bitterness. They want proof of conventional domestic arrangement. The kitchen went silent except for the pop of rendering fat. So, we tell them May's here now, Luke said finally. She's family. Abel and May looked at each other across a distance that suddenly felt vast as prairie. I'm hired help, May said carefully. That's not what they mean. Then what do they mean? But Luke's face said he already knew. That night, May found Abel on the porch, staring at stars like they might offer answers. She pulled her shawl tight and joined him. I won't trap you, he said without preamble. Won't use the land as a snare. Nobody's trapping anybody. May kept her voice steady as her soap-making. Question is, what's practical? Marriage is more than practical. Is it? May turned to face him. My first marriage was love-drunk foolishness. Lasted 6 years before the railroad took him. Your marriage, she stopped, but the words hung there anyway, was everything. Abel finished. Which is why I can't ask you to pretend it's something sacred. May laughed, short and sharp. Sacred? Abel Hart. I've birthed dead babies and washed my husband's blood off kitchen floors. Sacred left me behind long ago. But practical, that I understand. Abel flinched at her bluntness. Good, she thought. Sugarcoating helped nothing. The boy needs this land, she continued. You need this land. I need... She paused, surprised by the truth. I need somewhere to not be a ghost. That's all? May considered lying, then didn't. For now. They stood quiet, breath misting in the cold. Finally, Abel spoke. If we did this, paper marriage, legal thing, I'd not expect... That is, your room would stay your room. I know. And if someday you wanted to leave, I won't. The certainty in her voice surprised them both. I don't make promises light. Abel, learned that lesson hard, but I'm here. And that boy in there is halfway to letting me matter to him. And this house is starting to feel like something I could tend long-term. She pulled the shawl tighter. Maybe that's not love like poets write, but it's not nothing. Abel studied her face in the dim light spilling from the kitchen window. No, it's not nothing. They told Luke the next morning over breakfast. May set down eggs and bacon like any morning while Abel explained the necessity. Luke listened. Face carved from stone. So you're getting married for paperwork. His voice could have frosted windows. We're getting married so you keep your home, May corrected. So this ranch your mother loved stays in the family she loved. Luke's head snapped up. Don't you talk about her. Someone should. May sat down across from him, hands flat on the table. Someone should say Sarah Hart loved this place, loved you, loved your father. Someone should say her dying didn't erase that love, just changed its shape. You didn't know her. No, but I know absence. Know how it sits at tables and sleeps in empty beds and echoes in quiet rooms. May's voice gentled. I'm not trying to fill her place. Luke, nobody could, but maybe I can help carry what she left behind. Luke shoved back from the table, chair catching on the floor groove. I need to check the horses. They let him go. Some angers needed space to burn. The wedding, such as it was, happened 3 days later at the county courthouse. Judge Morrison presided, his secretary and Jorge as witnesses. May wore her black dress, seemed fitting, she thought, marrying grief to grief. Abel wore his church suit and looked miserable. Luke came, said he wouldn't, then appeared at the last minute, jaw set like he was attending an execution, which maybe he was, the execution of his mother's memory, or so he might think. Do you, Abel Josiah Hart, take this woman? Morrison's words rolled out practiced and empty. May barely heard them. She was watching Luke, seeing how his hands gripped his chair arms, knuckles white. When Morrison asked for objections, Luke's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Said nothing. I now pronounce you man and wife. No kiss, just paper signed. Seal stamped. Legal knots tied. Morrison's secretary smiled sympathetic. Jorge shook Abel's hand, nodded respectful to May. Luke wheeled himself out without a word. The ride home stretched longer than the 2 hours it took. Luke sat in the wagon bed with his chair, back to them both. May felt words pile up in her throat like snow against a fence, but none seemed right for speaking. At the ranch, Luke disappeared into the barn. Abel started to follow, but May caught his arm. "Let him be. He's hurting." "Yes." She released his arm, noticed she'd left flower fingerprints on his sleeve. "Hurting's not the worst thing. Stopping feeling is—" That night, supper was a war zone of silence. Luke came in late, dirt smudged, smelling of horses and hay. He ate methodical, not tasting. When May set down coffee, he didn't look up. "Thank you," he said automatic. "You're welcome," she replied, same as always. But when she turned back to the stove, she heard his chair scrape. Glanced back to see him gone, plate still half full. She found the photograph while cleaning, tucked behind the flower bin. Frame cracked. Sarah Hart with baby Luke, both laughing at something beyond the camera's edge. Beautiful woman. Dark-haired where May was brown. Delicate where May was sturdy. Everything May wasn't and never would be. She cleaned the frame careful, replaced the cracked glass with window pane cut to fit, set it on the mantel where lamplight would catch it evening and morning both. Abel found her there after chores, staring at his dead wife's face. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do." May didn't turn. "She lived here, loved here, died here. Hiding her away helps nobody, least of all Luke." He might not see it that way. He might not. May faced him then. But grief shared weighs less than grief carried alone. Boy needs to learn that. Abel looked at the photograph, and May saw years collapse in his face. "I miss her." "You should." May touched his hand, brief as bird landing. Missing her means she was worth missing. Luke's reaction came at supper. He rolled in, saw the photograph, stopped dead. May kept serving stew, not acknowledging the moment. Abel focused on buttering bread like it required all his concentration. Finally, Luke moved to his place, ate in silence until— She hated that picture, said it made her nose look crooked. "Was it?" May asked, mild. "Crooked. Little bit. Broke it falling from a horse when she was 12. Luke's voice carried something almost like warmth. Pa called it her adventure nose. "Better than a perfect nose with no stories," May observed. Luke looked at her sharp, maybe hearing something more than words, but he finished his meal, and when he left, the photograph stayed on the mantel. That night, May couldn't sleep. The certificate of marriage sat on her dresser like an accusation. Mrs. Abel Hart. Legal fiction written in iron gall ink. She'd been Mrs. Delaney so long. The new name felt like wearing someone else's shoes. A soft knock. "May?" Abel through the door, voice uncertain. "You awake?" She opened the door. He stood in his nightshirt and pants, looking younger in the hallway's dim light. Vulnerable. "Can't sleep either," she asked. "Keep thinking I should say something. Thank you, or I'm sorry, or—" He rubbed his face. "I don't know what's right anymore." Maybe nothing's right. May stepped into the hallway, closed her door behind her. Maybe we just do what needs doing and hope right follows. Is that enough? Has to be. They stood there, neither moving toward nor away. Finally, Abel said, "I built this house for her. Sarah. Every board placed thinking of where she'd walk, what she'd see from each window. It's a good house. She made it good. I just built it." May heard what he wasn't saying. That houses could be haunted by love as much as sorrow. That he'd trapped himself in rooms shaped by a ghost's preferences. Houses learn new families. She said, same as families learn new houses. Abel met her eyes then. Really looked at her for maybe the first time since Judge Morrison pronounced them wed. "Do you think we can? Learn to be family? We're already learning." May gestured toward Luke's room, where light still showed under the door. "That boy let me put his mother's picture where he has to see it. You let me change how you take your coffee. I let you both matter to me when I swore I wouldn't let anyone matter again. Is that what this is? Mattering? Start there. See what grows. Abel nodded slow, turned to go, then turned back. May, the name, you don't have to use it. Hart, can stay Delaney if you prefer. May considered. Was May Delaney 16 years? Good years and bad, but she's done now. I think. She tried the words careful. May Hart's got work to do. Might as well let her do it. Something shifted in Abel's face. Relief or recognition, or maybe both. Good night, May Hart. Good night. She watched him walk back to his room, shoulders less bent than before. Through Luke's door came the soft scrape of pencil on paper, the boy writing in that journal he thought nobody knew about. Tomorrow there'd be bread to make and chickens to tend and all the daily business of living. But tonight, in a house built for one woman and inhabited by another, something new and fragile took root. Not love, exactly. Not yet, but the possibility of it. Patient as winter wheat waiting under snow for its season to grow. The trouble started with Silas Vane's visit on a morning when ice hung from the eaves like accusations. May saw him coming, black coat against white snow, riding a horse that cost more than most folks' houses. She knew trouble by its walk, and Vane walked like a man who collected grievances for sport. Abel around? Vane didn't dismount, didn't touch his hat, looked down at May like she was something scraped off his boot. He's in the barn. May didn't invite him in, didn't step aside. Two could play at rudeness. Fetch him. May smiled, thin as wire. Mister, Hart's working. You're welcome to find him yourself or state your business here. Vane's eyes narrowed. You'd be the new wife, the mail order one. I'd be Mrs. Hart. May kept her voice level as a spirit bubble. And you'd be leaving if you can't speak civil. Luke appeared in the doorway behind her, drawn by voices. Vane's expression shifted when he saw the boy, something calculating sliding across his features like oil on water. Well now, Vane said slow, young Luke, how's the legs? Same as yesterday when you asked Jorge in town. Luke's voice carried an edge May hadn't heard before. Still attached, still mine. That so? Vane leaned forward in his saddle. Everything about you still yours? Or might some things belong to folks you never knew? Abel came around the corner then, pitchfork in hand, not threatening, just there. Vane. Hart. Vane straightened. Just coming by neighborly. Heard you got yourself married. Thought I'd pay respects. Paid. Abel's grip on the pitchfork didn't change, but May saw his knuckles whiten. Anything else? Well, now that you mention it. Vane pulled a paper from his coat. Been doing some research down at the county records. Interesting reading, especially about young Luke there. The morning went still as held breath. Seems there's no birth record for a Luke Hart in this county, or the next, or anywhere in Wyoming territory, far as I can tell. Vane's smile was winter cold. Makes a man wonder. Wonder all you like. Abel said, on your own land. See, that's the thing. Vane tucked the paper away. Land rights pass through blood. Legal blood, if the boy ain't yours. He shrugged, eloquent as a knife between ribs. After Vane left, trailing threats like smoke, they gathered in the kitchen. Luke's face had gone pale as fresh plaster. Pa. One word carrying years of questions. Abel sat heavy, suddenly old. May poured coffee, set the pot on the table between them like a mediator. You were 3 weeks old. Abel began. Maybe 4. Hard to know. He stared into his cup like it held the past. February of '68. Worst winter I'd seen. Sarah and me had been trying for a baby for 2 years. Lost 3. Doctor said. He stopped. Started again. Said we should stop trying. May watched Luke's hands grip his chair arms, knuckles sharp as winter ridges. I was running trap lines up near Rattlesnake Ridge. Storm coming, but we needed the money. Found Elias Pike's wagon tilted off the trail, already half buried in snow. The trapper? Luke knew the name. Everyone knew Elias Pike, half mad, full hermit, living wild in the mountains. His horse was dead in the traces. Elias was inside, wrapped around something, froze solid. Abel's voice roughed. Took me a minute to realize the bundle was moving. Luke made a sound. Not quite word, not quite sob. You were wrapped in a blanket, brown wool with red cross stitched on it. Elias, he'd opened his own coat, tried to keep you warm with his body heat, died doing it. May found herself reaching for Luke's shoulder. He didn't pull away. There was a paper in Elias's pocket, water-stained, mostly ruined. Could only make out a few words. Please, and God, and something might have been Sarah. Abel looked up then. We took it as a sign. Sarah said God was answering prayers sideways, like he does. So I'm nobody. Luke's voice came hollow as a dried gourd. You're Luke Hart. Abel's voice turned fierce. Been Luke Hart since the day I carried you home through that storm. Since Sarah held you and cried and said you were ours now. Since Pastor Williams baptized you with half the town watching. But legally, you're mine. Filed the papers. Did it proper. Said you were born at home. No midwife. Nobody questioned it. Why would they? Baby looked like a baby. Had no cause to think. Abel stopped. Should have told you. Sarah wanted to. When you got older. Then she died, and the words just never came. Luke rolled back from the table. I can't. He spun his chair, headed for the door. Luke, May said quiet. He stopped but didn't turn. That blanket, the brown one with the cross. You still have it? Abel nodded slow. In the cedar chest. Sarah wouldn't let me throw it out. Good, May stood. We'll need it. For what? Luke turned then, face twisted with confusion and hurt. For proving who you are. May moved to the window, watching the road where Vane had disappeared. Man like that doesn't make threats idle. He'll file papers, make claims. We need to be ready. With a blanket. Luke's laugh cracked bitter. Against a man who owns half the county? With the truth. May faced them both. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes it isn't, but we start there. That night, May found Luke on the porch despite the cold, the brown blanket across his lap. She'd retrieved it while he was in the barn, left it on his bed without comment. It's smaller than I thought, he said as she sat beside him. Wouldn't cover me past my knees now. You were smaller then, too. Luke traced the red cross with one finger. Ma, Sarah, she used to say I came to them special delivery. Never knew she meant it literal. Does it matter? May pulled her shawl tight. How you arrived? Shouldn't. Luke folded the blanket careful, like it might crumble. But it does. All these years, thinking I had her blood. His blood. Thinking my legs were bad luck, but at least I belonged. His voice caught. Now I'm just some throwaway baby who brought bad luck with him. May was quiet long enough that Luke looked over. You going to tell me I'm wrong? No. She stared out at the snow-covered yard. You're not wrong. You were thrown away. That's true. But it's not the only truth. Maybe not even the important one. What's more important than blood? Choice. May turned to him. Your Abel, he could have left you in that wagon. Easier thing. In a storm. But he chose to carry you home. Sarah chose to love you like her own. And for 16 years, they chose you again every morning. That's different than being born to them. Is it? May stood, knees creaking. My daughter was my blood. Loved her fierce as fire. Still couldn't keep her alive. Blood's no guarantee of anything. Luke, ask Cain and Abel. Luke snorted despite himself. Pa hates when people make that joke about his name. I bet. May touched his shoulder light. Point is, family's built as much as birthed. Your parents built you a family strong enough to last past death. That's more than blood. That's iron. Inside, Abel sat at the kitchen table, writing careful in the ledger where he tracked ranch business. But May saw the pen pause, saw him staring at nothing. Need help? She asked. Writing to Judge Morrison, explaining the situation before Vane twists it. Abel set down the pen. Don't know how to say it right. Dear Judge, my son's my son even though he isn't. Sounds foolish. May read over his shoulder, then took the pen. May I? He nodded. She wrote in her careful schoolhouse hand. Judge Morrison, regarding the matter of Luke Hart's parentage and inheritance rights. In February 1868, I took custody of an abandoned infant in life-threatening conditions. With my late wife, Sarah, I raised this child as our son. All proper documentation was filed with the county. Luke Hart has been acknowledged by this community as my legal son for 16 years. Any challenge to his status is both legally groundless and morally reprehensible. I trust you will dismiss any such claims with the contempt they deserve. Respectfully, Abel Hart. Abel read it twice. You sound like a lawyer. Had to learn legal writing when James died. Fighting off creditors teaches you to use words like weapons. She set down the pen. Sometimes that's what they need to be. They sent Jorge to town with the letter next morning. By afternoon, he was back with company. Elias Pike himself, looking like winter had carved him from driftwood and leather. Heard Vane sniffing around old stories, Elias said without preamble, standing in their kitchen like a wild thing forced indoors. Figured you might need this. He pulled out a leather journal, pages yellow as old bones. Keep records of my finds. Habit from trapping days. Look here. He opened to a page covered in cramped writing. February 15, 68. Found dead woman frozen roadside. Mile marker 42. Young, maybe 20. Mexican or Indian blood by look. Well dressed, so not local. Baby nearby, barely alive. Gave to Hart, who was passing. Woman too froze to bury. Marked spot with rocks. May read the entry. Heart racing. You found Luke's mother. Found a dead woman with a baby. Elias shrugged. Whether that makes her a mother's another question. But she died trying to keep that baby warm, wrapped him careful, even while freezing. He looked at Luke. That tell you what you need to know, boy? Luke's eyes shone wet. The grave. Is it? Still there. I check sometimes. Keep the marker stones stacked. Elias closed the journal. Woman like that, dying for her baby, she deserves remembering, even by strangers. She's not a stranger. Luke said quiet. She's my mother, my first mother. Elias nodded once. Satisfied. You want this journal for your legal troubles. It's yours. Rather see it help the living than molder in my cabin. After Elias left, they sat with the journal between them like a holy book. Proof written in faded ink. Luke had been loved by 2 mothers, chosen by one, died for by another. We should visit, Luke said finally. The grave. When the snow clears. We will, Abel promised. May picked up the journal, studying the entry again. Something caught her eye. Look at this, the date, February 15th, and here, where Elias describes the blanket, brown wool, red cross. That's not just any blanket. What do you mean? Abel leaned closer. That's a St. Bridget's cross, Irish blessing symbol, and February 15th, that's St. Bridget's feast day. May set down the journal. Careful. Your mother, Luke, she was trying to get you somewhere specific. Maybe to the Irish settlements near Cheyenne. Somewhere she thought you'd be safe. Understood. Luke touched the journal page like it might vanish. So I'm Irish. Part, maybe. Does it matter? Luke considered. Yesterday it would have. Today. He looked between Abel and May. Today I think I'm just Luke Hart. That's enough name for anybody. That night, May couldn't sleep for thinking. A young woman, dying in snow, wrapping her baby in blessed wool. The kind of love that spends its last breath on hope. She'd known that love, burying her own daughter. Would have died for her if death would have helped. She rose, went to the kitchen for water, found Abel there staring at the stove's dying embers. Can't sleep either, he shook his head. Keep thinking about that woman, wondering who she was, why she was alone, whether anyone looked for her. Someone did. May sat across from him. Someone loved her enough to give her a saint's blanket. Someone missed her when she didn't come home. Like Sarah. The words fell soft between them. Like Sarah. May reached across the table, covered his hand with hers. First time she'd touched him deliberate since the wedding. His hand turned, fingers threading through hers, careful as darning. "Thank you," he said. "For the letter. For knowing what Luke needed to hear. For—" He stopped, started again. "For making us family when we were just three broken people sharing a house." May squeezed his hand, then let go. Still broken, but maybe that's how the light gets in. They sat in comfortable silence while the stove ticked cooling and wind-tested windows. Tomorrow would bring whatever Vane planned next. But tonight, in a kitchen that had seen birth and death and all the living between, they had truth written in faded ink and love stitched in red wool. Sometimes that was arsenal enough. The Dry Creek courthouse smelled of old wood and older arguments. May sat between Abel and Luke in the front row, watching townsfolk file in for the hearing. Word traveled fast in small places. Silas Vane challenging the Hart boys' inheritance had drawn a crowd like blood draws flies. Vane sat across the aisle, pressed and polished as a new penny. His lawyer from Cheyenne had teeth white as lies and a smile to match. Behind them, Vane's hired men lounged against the wall, making their presence felt. Quite a turnout, May observed, voice steady as her hands weren't. "Vultures," Luke muttered, his good clothes pulled tight across shoulders gone rigid with anger. "Come to watch us lose everything, or to watch Vane get what's coming," Abel countered, though his jaw betrayed his own doubts. Judge Morrison entered, black robes making him look like a crow among pigeons. May had cleaned his wife's birthing bed twice, hoped that counted for something in the scales of justice. "This hearing will determine the matter of inheritance rights regarding the Hart property," Morrison began. "Mr. Vane has filed challenge to Luke Hart's status as legal heir, claiming—" He adjusted his spectacles. "Claiming fraudulent representation of parentage." The Cheyenne lawyer stood smooth as oil poured. "Your Honor, we'll demonstrate that the boy called Luke Hart has no blood relation to Abel Hart, making any inheritance claim invalid under territorial law." "He's my son," Abel said, half rising before May's hand on his arm stopped him. "You'll have your turn, Mr. Hart," Morrison said, not unkind. "Mr. Aldrich, proceed." Aldrich painted a picture ugly as sin and twice as twisted, how Abel Hart had procured a baby through unknown means, how he'd filed false documents, how the land, prime grazing territory with year-round water, should revert to public auction, where Vane would buy it for pennies on the dollar. He didn't say that part, but everyone heard it anyway. "Furthermore," Aldrich continued, "we've found no record of this supposed foundling adoption. No witnesses to the alleged discovery, just the word of a grieving couple desperate for a child." May felt Luke flinch at desperate. She pressed her foot against his chair wheel, small contact, but he stilled. When Aldrich finished, Morrison turned to their side. "Mr. Hart, your response." Abel stood. No lawyer, no smooth words. Just a rancher in his best clothes holding papers that shook slightly. "I've brought Elias Pike's journal," he began. "Shows the date and circumstances of finding Luke. And this—" He held up the blanket, faded brown with its red cross still visible. "This is what he was wrapped in. A blanket proves nothing," Aldrich interrupted. "Could be any blanket, any child." "Let him finish," Morrison said sharp. Abel continued, voice growing stronger. "I've also brought baptismal records from Pastor Williams and sworn statements from folks who remember us bringing Luke home that winter." He laid out evidence like fence posts, straight, simple, sturdy. The journal, the church records, Martha Clark's statement about helping Sarah tend the baby those first weeks, Jorge's memory of Abel riding in through a blizzard with something bundled under his coat. Morrison studied each piece, face unreadable as stone. The courtroom held its breath. Then Luke spoke. "Your Honor?" His voice cracked slightly, but he rolled his chair forward. "May I say something?" Morrison nodded. Luke faced the room, hands steady on his wheels. "Mr. Vane says I'm not Abel Hart's blood. He's right. I'm not, but I am his son. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Vane smirked. See, blood would have been easy, Luke continued. Would have meant I belonged without choosing, but what I got was better. I got a man who chose to raise me, a woman who chose to love me, and 16 years of choosing each other every day. He turned to Vane. You think that paper makes family? You think blood makes a son? Then explain why my PA worked nights to build me this chair. Why my mother, Sarah Hart, sang to me through fever when I was 5. Why May Hart fights for me now like I came from her own body. May's throat closed tight. My mother, like I came from her own body. The words hit deep as winter cold. None of that's legal precedent, Aldrich protested. No, Luke agreed. But this is. I've been known as Luke Hart my whole life. This whole town knows me as Luke Hart. I've worked Heartland since I could hold tools. That's precedent. That's fact. That's law. The courtroom erupted in talk. Morrison banged his gavel hard enough to shake dust from rafters. Order. He waited for quiet. This is a matter of law, not sentiment. However, he shuffled papers. The law recognizes both blood and custom in matters of inheritance. Mr. Pike's journal provides contemporary documentation of the child's arrival. The baptismal records show legal acknowledgement by the community. And 16 years of public recognition as Luke Hart carries significant weight. Vane stood abrupt. Your Honor, surely— I'm not finished. Mr. Vane. Morrison's voice could have frozen flame. I'm also considering your motivations in bringing this challenge. Seems peculiar. A neighbor suddenly concerned with bloodlines when valuable land's at stake. I'm protecting the law. Vane protested. You're protecting your wallet. Someone called from the back. Nervous laughter skittered through the room. Morrison raised his gavel for silence. After reviewing the evidence and testimony, this court finds that Luke Hart is the legally recognized son of Abel Hart, with full inheritance rights intact. Challenge dismissed. The gavel fell like thunder. Vane's face went purple as fresh beef. This is favoritism, small-town corruption. This is justice. Morrison replied cold. And you'll remove yourself from my courtroom before I find you in contempt. As Vane stormed out, Aldrich packing papers in his wake. The courtroom exploded in talk and movement. Folks pressed forward to shake Abel's hand, pat Luke's shoulder. May found herself pulled into embraces by women she barely knew. Never liked that, Vane. Mrs., Morrison confided. Too smooth by half, like a snake in a suit. Through the crowd, May caught Luke's eye. He was surrounded by well-wishers, but looking at her, something bright and grateful in his face. She nodded once. He nodded back, understanding without words. Outside, snow began falling soft as prayers answered. They loaded Luke's chair in the wagon bed. Abel helping from one side, May from the other. Routine now, smooth as breathing. That was a fine speech, Abel said as they settled Luke on the seat. Wasn't a speech, just truth. Luke pulled the blanket tighter around his shoulders. He'd worn it to court like armor. May was right. Families built, not just born. May climbed up beside him. Your mother would be proud. Both of them. All of them. Luke corrected quiet, and May's heart turned over like rich soil. The ride home passed in comfortable silence. Snow gathered on their shoulders, blessed cold and clean. As they crested the rise before the ranch, Abel pulled the team to a stop. Look there, he said soft. Below them, the ranch spread out like a promise kept, smoke rising from the chimney, barns sturdy against the white, fences marking off their piece of the world. Home. It's ours, Luke said, wonder in his voice. Really ours? Always was, Abel replied. Vane just made us prove it. That night, celebration was quiet. Good stew, fresh bread, coffee with sugar unstinted. They'd won, but victory felt fragile as fresh ice. Men like Vane didn't take losing well. He'll try again, May said, voicing what they all thought. Different angle, but he'll try. Maybe. Abel pushed back from the table. But today today was enough. Luke wheeled himself to the window, looking out at falling snow. I want to visit her, my first mother. When weather clears, we'll go, Abel promised. All of us. I want to bring flowers. Luke continued. And maybe a marker, something permanent. She should have a name on stone, even if we don't know it. What would you put? May asked. Luke thought. Maybe just Mother. That's name enough. Later, May found herself in the parlor, drawn to the piano still shrouded in its sheet. Tonight felt different, like surviving trial by fire, coming through scarred but whole. She lifted the sheet, let it puddle on the floor. The keys were yellow ivory, cool under her fingers. She found middle C, pressed gentle. The note rang clear in the quiet house. You play, Abel's voice from the doorway. Careful. Some, my mother taught me, before. May's hands found a simple hymn. Notes rusty but true. Been years. Sarah played every evening. Abel moved into the room, drawn by music like moth to flame. House hasn't heard piano since she died. May's hands stilled. I can stop. No. The word came quick. No, it's good. House needs music again. She played on, simple tunes half remembered. Abel sat in his chair by the fire, eyes closed. From the hallway came the squeak of Luke's wheels, but he stayed out of sight, listening, when her hands finally quieted, the last note hanging in air like a blessing. Abel spoke soft. Thank you. For what? For making us a family in that courtroom? For bringing music back? For... He opened his eyes, looked at her straight. For choosing us. May covered the keys gentle, stood. Wasn't just me choosing. She passed Luke in the hallway, touched his shoulder light. He caught her hand, squeezed once. No words needed. In a room. Their room. Really, this house they all shared. May pulled out paper and pen. Wrote careful. To whom it may concern. Today I became Luke Hart's mother in the eyes of law and town. But I've been his mother longer than that, in all the ways that matter. Love isn't always born. Sometimes it's built, board by board, meal by meal, choice by choice. Today we chose each other permanent. Today we became what we've been becoming all along, a family. She folded the letter, placed it in the Bible where Luke would find it someday. Then she banked the fire and prepared for bed, listening to the house settle around her, Abel's footsteps above, Luke's chair rolling to his room, the dog's contented sigh from the kitchen. Outside, snow erased the day's tracks, making the world new. Tomorrow would bring whatever it brought, Vane's revenge or peace or something between. But tonight, in a house that had remembered how to sing, 3 people who'd chosen each other slept sound as verdict, deep as justice, warm as hope finally finding home. The stranger appeared at sunset 3 weeks after the trial, silhouetted against the dying light like a bad omen. May saw him first from the kitchen window, lone rider on the ridge where property lines blurred, still as a fence post, watching. Abel, she called quiet, not wanting to alarm Luke. Abel joined her at the window, squinting against the glare. Been there long? 20 minutes, maybe more. May dried her hands slow, eyes never leaving the figure, just watching. Could be anyone, traveler getting bearings. Could be, but May knew better. Travelers didn't sit statue still studying a ranch like they were memorizing its weaknesses. The rider vanished with full dark, but May double-checked the door locks that night. Abel noticed, said nothing, but she saw him clean his rifle before bed. 3 days later, Rafe Cutter knocked on their door. May recognized his type before he spoke. Black wool coat too fine for honest work. Boots that had never met a stirrup honestly. Smile sharp as winter wind. The kind of man who collected debts in flesh when coin ran short. Mrs. Hart? He touched his hat brim, mockery in the gesture. Mrs. May Hart? Used to be Delaney? Ice walked up May's spine. Who's asking? Rafe Cutter, associate of your late husband. James Delaney? He produced papers from his coat like a card sharp showing aces. Seems James left some unfinished business. Debts unpaid. May kept her face still as wash water. James is dead. His debts died with him. Now that's where you're wrong. Cutter unfolded the papers, held them up like scripture. See, James put up collateral. Everything he owned, and here's the interesting part, everything his wife owned, present and future. May's mouth went dry. She remembered James in those last months, desperate as a drowning man, making promises he couldn't keep. She'd thought she knew all his debts, thought she'd paid them with everything she owned. I settled his accounts, she said. Sold everything. The creditors were satisfied. The legitimate creditors. Maybe. Cutter's smile widened. But James and I, we had a more private arrangement. Off the books, you might say. Abel appeared behind May, solid as an oak beam. My wife's past debts are not your concern. Ah, the new husband. Cutter looked Abel up and down, cataloging. Abel Hart, rancher, widower. Got yourself a ready-made family with a mail-order bride. He tisked. Touching story. Shame if debt collectors had to break it up. State your business or leave, Abel said flat. Cutter handed over the papers. $3,000, plus interest. Call it $4,000 even, for my trouble tracking the widow down. May felt the floor tilt. $4,000. More than the ranch cleared in 2 years, more than they had or could borrow. This is forged, she said, though her voice sounded hollow. James did whatever it took to get stake money. Cutter pulled out a second paper. His signature. And look here, yours too. Remember signing papers for him? Just business documents, he said. May did remember. James pushing papers at her. Impatient. Just sign. May, trust me. And fool that she was. She had... Luke rolled out from the hallway where he'd been listening. Get out of our house. Cutter's eyes flicked to the chair, to Luke's thin legs. Something ugly crossed his face. Well now, the crippled boy. Heard about you in town? Tragic story. He turned back to May. $4,000. You've got 2 weeks to raise it. Or what? Abel stepped forward. Or I exercise my legal rights. Cutter moved to the door, paused. Could take the ranch, could take other things. Man in my profession. We learn to be creative about collecting what's owed. He left them standing in the kitchen, papers on the table like poison. Let me see, Luke said. Reaching, May handed them over, hands numb. Luke studied them with the focus he brought to books, looking for flaws in the writing. Could be forged, he said finally, but proving it would cost more than we have. Abel finished. And Cutter knows it. That night, May told them everything. About James and his schemes, the failed investments, the gambling, the way hope turned to desperation turned to madness, how she'd found him that last day, what remained after the train. Stop, Abel said gentle. We don't need those details. You need to know what you married into, May insisted. What I brought to your door. You brought yourself, Luke said fierce. Rest is just paper and wind. But May saw the worry in Abel's eyes, the way he calculated resources they didn't have. 4,000 might as well be 4 million. Cutter took to visiting regular, always at meal times. Never came in, just sat his horse in the yard, whistling tunelessly. The third time, he'd brought friends, 2 men with faces that promised violence. Like vultures, Luke muttered, watching from the window. Vultures wait for things to die, May corrected. These are wolves. They make the dying happen. She'd started carrying the kitchen knife in her apron. Small protection, but the weight felt necessary. Sunday brought no relief. Cutter sat through church service, 3 pews back, eyes boring into May's skull. Pastor Williams preached about rendering unto Caesar, but all May heard was the whistle of debt calling due. After service, Mrs. Morrison pulled May aside. That man, he's trouble? Old business, May said carefully. From before. Mrs. Morrison studied her with judge's wife eyes. If you need help. Thank you. May squeezed her hand. but it's my weight to carry. That night, Luke found May in the barn, brushing the horses with movements too harsh for kindness. "You're thinking of running," he said. Not a question. May's hand stilled. "Would solve things. Cutter wants me, not you." "Like hell." Luke rolled closer. "You run. He still comes for the ranch. Uses your debt as claim. We lose you and the land both." "Better than—" May stopped, but Luke heard the unspoken words. "Better than what? Than us fighting for you?" His voice cracked with anger. "You think we'd just let you go? Think Pa would? Think I would? I'm not your mother." "Luke." "No." Luke's jaw set stubborn. "You're the woman who chose to be my mother. That's harder. That's more. And I'll be damned if I let some ghost from your past take that away." May turned away so he wouldn't see her eyes fill. $4,000. "Luke, where do we get $4,000? "I don't know." Luke backed his chair toward the door. "But we've got a week to figure it out. And May, we're not giving up. Not on the ranch. Not on you. Get used to it." After he left, May stood in the barn's quiet, breathing hay and horse and the particular smell of hope, refusing to die. Through the walls came the sound of Abel's hammer. He was reinforcing the shutters, preparing for siege. Wednesday brought escalation. May went to town for supplies. Found Cutter waiting outside the mercantile. Mrs. Hart. He tipped his hat. "Lovely day for shopping. What's the husband buying you? Ribbons? Pretties?" His voice dropped. "Enjoy them while you can. Move aside," May said steady. "Or what?" Cutter stepped closer. "You'll stick me with that knife in your pocket?" "Oh yes, I noticed. James mentioned you had spirit. Said breaking it was half the fun." May's hand went to the knife, but Jorge appeared from nowhere, solid and scowling. "Problem. Senora Hart?" "No problem," Cutter said, backing away. "Just catching up with an old friend. 4 days left. May, tick-tock." That night, May made dinner mechanical as clockwork, while Abel and Luke talked low in the parlor. She couldn't hear words, just the rumble of planning. When she called them to table, both faces held the same stubborn set. "We're not paying," Abel announced. May's hand stilled on the coffee pot. "Abel, man's a parasite, a bloodsucker using forged paper or real debt twisted into threat." Abel's fist hit the table. "We're not paying." "Then we're fighting," May said. "Wasn't a question." "Then we're fighting," Luke confirmed. May poured coffee steady as her hands weren't. "He'll come hard. Men like Cutter don't take defiance well. Neither do Harts," Abel said. That night, May lay awake counting heartbeats and chances. From the main room came sounds of Abel cleaning guns, Luke sharpening knives, her men preparing for war over a debt that wasn't theirs. She rose, padded barefoot to the kitchen. The photograph of Sarah and baby Luke caught moonlight on the mantel. Beautiful woman, trusting face. Woman who'd never had to sign papers in desperation, never had to wash blood from kitchen floors. "I'm sorry," May whispered, "for bringing this to your house." The photograph smiled on, serene and silent. A board creaked. Abel stood in the doorway, nightshirt pale in the darkness. "Can't sleep either," May shook her head. He crossed to stand beside her, looking at Sarah's picture. You know what she would have said. "Sarah," she would have said, "trouble's just another kind of weather. You don't apologize for bringing storm. You just help nail the shutters. This is different. This is you needing help and us providing it." Abel turned to face her. "That's what family does." "I'm not worth—" Abel's hands caught her shoulders, gentle but firm. "May Hart, you're worth whatever fight comes. You're worth more than $4,000 or $40,000. You're worth Luke smiling again. Worth music in this house. Worth—" He stopped, throat working. "Worth what?" May whispered. "Worth learning to live again instead of just existing." They stood in the dark kitchen, his hands warm on her shoulders, her dead husband's debt circling like wolves. And somehow none of that mattered as much as the space between them shrinking like melting snow. "He'll come Sunday," May said finally. "When 2 weeks are up, that's his way, making fear do half his work. Then Sunday we'll be ready." Abel released her shoulders slow. All of us. May nodded, turned to go, turned back, rose on her toes and kissed his cheek quick as thought. Thank you. For the fight. For... She gestured at the space between them. Around them. For all of it. Then she fled to her room before he could respond, heart hammering with more than fear. Sunday would come like judgment. But tonight, in a house defended by stubborn men and bordered by love stronger than old debts. May Hart finally understood what she'd been afraid to name. She wasn't fighting for a place to hide anymore. She was fighting for home. Sunday came wearing darkness like a shroud. May woke before dawn, found Abel already at the kitchen window, rifle across his lap. The coffee pot sat cold on the stove. No one had bothered with morning routines. See anything? She asked. Not yet, but they're out there. Abel's voice carried certainty. Cutter likes his drama. He'll wait for full light. Luke rolled in from the hallway, his own rifle balanced across his chair arms. They'd rigged a special brace so he could shoot steady. May had watched him practice all week, hitting targets with grim determination. Check the back, Luke reported. Biscuits growling at shadows by the barn. May had penned the animals safe as they could manage. The horses in their stalls, chickens locked tight. Whatever came, she wouldn't have livestock caught in crossfire. By full dawn, they'd taken positions. Abel at the front window, Luke at the side where his chair fit behind overturned furniture, May at the back door with a shotgun, watching the approach from the barn. The morning stayed quiet too long. Waiting was its own violence. May thought, made you half defeated before the first shot. Then horses, 3, 4, 5 riders coming slow up the road like they had all the time in the world. Cutter in front, black coat dramatic against the frost-white ground. That's only 5, Luke said. He brought 6 to town yesterday. 6th is somewhere we can't see. Abel replied, Stay sharp. Cutter stopped just outside rifle range, his men spreading in a loose half circle. He stood in his stirrups, voice carrying clear in the still air. Morning, Hart family. Fine day for settling debts. Nothing to settle. Abel called back, Get off my land. Your land? Cutter laughed. That's the question, isn't it? Whether this stays your land or becomes payment for services rendered? May saw movement by the barn, the 6th man, trying to flank them. She shifted the shotgun, tracking his path. I've got legal papers. Cutter continued, Signed and witnessed. The widow owes me $4,000. I'm here to collect. Collect lead if you come closer. Abel warned. Now. No need for unpleasantness. Cutter dismounted, casual as Sunday visiting. I'm a reasonable man. Can't pay cash. I'll take trade. The ranch would square us. No. The livestock then. And the horses. Call it partial payment. No. Then maybe. Cutter's voice went silk soft. Maybe the boy works it off. Plenty of folks need a smart cripple who can read and cipher. Wouldn't take more than 10, 15 years to clear the debt. May heard Luke's sharp intake of breath, the click of his rifle cocking. You come for my son. You'd better bring more than 5 men, Abel said, voice deadly quiet. 6, Cutter corrected. Don't forget Barnes by your barn. The shot came from behind, barn window exploding in glass and splinters. May fired back instinct quick, buckshot spreading wide. Barnes yelped, stumbled into view, clutching his shoulder. Then everything went to hell. Cutter's men charged from 3 directions. Abel's rifle cracked steady, Luke firing between his shots. May pumped and fired, keeping Barnes pinned while watching for others. A torch sailed through the air, landed on the porch, another toward the barn. May abandoned her post, grabbed the water bucket they'd prepared, doused the porch fire before it could catch proper. Kitchen, Luke shouted. May spun. One of Cutter's men had made the back door, hatchet raised to splinter wood. She fired point blank through the door. The man screamed, fell back. In the main room, furniture crashed, Abel fighting someone hand to hand. Rifle abandoned. Luke trying to get a clear shot, but the men tangled too close. May grabbed the iron poker from the stove, still hot from last night's fire, brought it down hard on the attacker's wrist. Bone cracked. The man howled, releasing Abel. "Down!" Luke yelled. May dropped. Luke's shot passed over her, caught another man coming through the window. He fell half in, half out, groaning. Sudden silence except for hurt men moaning and her own heart thundering. "Where's Cutter?" Abel gasped, blood running from his mouth. "Through the window." May saw him by the barn, trying to light another torch with Barnes's help. The barn, full of hay, full of winter feed, full of ways to burn them out. "I've got him," Luke said, wheeling toward the door. "No," May and Abel spoke together, but Luke was already gone, chair-bumping wild over the threshold. May ran after him, saw Cutter spot Luke, saw his face split in an ugly grin. Easy target, he must have thought. Crippled boy in a chair, rolling across open ground. Luke stopped 30 feet away, raised his rifle steady as stone. "Drop the torch," Luke said clear. Cutter laughed. "Or what, boy? You'll shoot me? Murder me in cold blood?" "Self-defense," Luke corrected. "You came to burn us out. I came to collect a legal debt." Cutter stepped forward, torch high. "Your mama there owes—" Luke's shot took the torch from his hand, sent it spinning into the dirt. Cutter froze. "That was your warning." Luke said, "Next one's center mass. What's it going to be?" May reached the porch, Abel beside her, both ready to charge if needed, but Luke sat steady, rifle never wavering. Cutter looked at the boy in the chair, at the scattered torch, at his men, 2 down. Others fled or moaning. Barnes was already limping toward the horses. "This isn't over," Cutter said. "Yes, it is." A new voice. Sheriff Watson riding up with 3 deputies. "Rafe Cutter, you're under arrest." "For what?" Cutter demanded. "Collecting a legal debt. For assault, attempted arson, threatening a minor." Watson dismounted, iron in his voice. "And for forging documents. Did some checking after misses. Hart visited yesterday. Interesting what you find when you compare signatures." May's knees went weak. Yesterday, when she'd slipped away while the men planned, desperate visit to town, throwing herself on law's mercy. "You can't prove—" Cutter started. James Delaney's cousin in Omaha was very helpful. Watson continued. "Sent examples of real signatures. Yours don't match. Also sent a letter James wrote him, saying he'd paid all debts before he died. Seemed right proud of leaving his wife clear." Watson's deputies were collecting Cutter's men, ones who could walk helping ones who couldn't. Cutter stood alone, face cycling through rage and disbelief. "She owes me," he said. "That witch owes me for what James—" "What James what?" May stepped forward. "What James promised you. What lies he told. He's dead. Cutter. Whatever he owed you died with him. He owed me." Cutter's voice cracked. "He owed me his luck, his scheme, his big chance. Then he died and left me with nothing. He left you with your life," May said quiet. "That's more than he kept for himself." Watson cuffed Cutter, who'd gone limp as old rope. "Judge'll sort this out, but I'm guessing prison time. Lot of it." As they led him away, Cutter looked back once. "Should have just paid," he said. "Would have been easier." "No," Luke said, still holding his rifle. "It wouldn't." The sheriff touched his hat to May. "Mrs. Hart, glad you came to me. Wished you'd done it sooner. Didn't know if you'd believe me over him. I believe evidence, and Cutter's been suspected of worse for years. This just gave us cause to dig." Watson mounted up. "We'll need statements later. For now, tend your hurt and your home." After they left, the 3 stood in the yard surveying damage. Porch scorched but standing. Barn singed but whole. Windows broken. Door damaged. Nothing that couldn't be fixed. "You went to the sheriff," Abel said, not accusing, wondering. "Yesterday. Took our marriage certificate. Showed the dates. Showed how I couldn't have signed Cutter's papers when he claimed I was already here, already May Hart." She managed a weak smile. Figured being your wife ought to protect me from my first husband's debts. You could have told us. Could have. But you were planning for war. Thought I'd try law first. May touched Luke's shoulder. Though you finished it. That was brave. Going out there wasn't brave, Luke said. Was angry. He threatened my family, my home, His voice caught. My mother. The word hung in cold air like breath made visible. Yes, May said simply. He did. They helped Luke up the damaged steps, Abel lifting the chair while May steadied Luke, like they'd done it 1,000 times instead of dozens. Practice made family as much as blood. Inside, May set water to heat for cleaning wounds. Abel's split lip, her powder-burned hands. Luke scraped palms from gripping his rifle, small hurts that would heal clean. We held, Luke said, something wondering in his voice. 3 of us held off 6 men. 3 of us. Nothing, Abel corrected. You held that shot, taking Cutter's torch. I couldn't have made that shot on my best day. Luke flushed. Been practicing. Been becoming who you are, May said. Protector, defender, heartman through and through. She brought the medical supplies, started with Abel's lip. He winced but held still, eyes on hers. Something new there, or maybe just something finally admitted. May, he started. I know, she said. Later, when we're not bleeding and the door's fixed and the glass is swept, then we'll talk about what comes after war. Luke rolled to the window, checking for threats that wouldn't come. We should get word to Elias Pike. Tell him we held. He'd want to know. Tomorrow, Abel agreed. Today we fix what's broken. But May knew some things were already fixed. Fixed in fire and lead and the way they'd moved as one unit, one family. Fixed in Luke calling her mother and meaning it. Fixed in Abel's eyes when he looked at her, no longer seeing replacement or convenience, but partner, wife, woman worth fighting for. The sun climbed higher, burning off frost and warming the damaged house. They worked together clearing glass, patching wood, setting things to rights. By evening, you'd have to look close to see the scars. Over supper, late but savored, Luke raised his coffee cup. To holding the line. To family, Abel countered. To home, May added. They drank, and the coffee tasted of victory and gunpowder and the particular sweetness of chosen bonds holding fast against whatever storm might come. Outside, night fell peaceful as any night. But inside, 3 people who'd fought for each other cleaned dishes and spoke of tomorrow and didn't flinch when the wind rattled windows. They'd been tested in fire and lead. They'd held. Spring came early that year, melting snow into mud and memory. May stood at the kitchen window watching Abel and Luke work on the new ramp, wider than the old one. With rails Luke could grip when rain made wood slick. They'd started building it the week after the fight with Cutter, without discussion. Just mutual understanding that access meant independence. Letter came. May called out. Both men looked up, Abel shading his eyes. Luke pausing mid-hammer. Mail still made them wary, though Cutter was serving 5 years hard labor and his forged papers had burned in the sheriff's own stove. Who from? Abel asked. Coming in. May studied the envelope. Denver. Addressed to Luke. Luke wheeled in fast, face curious. He took the letter, read it twice, then handed it to May, silent. Branson Technical Institute, she read aloud. Pleased to inform you of acceptance. Specialized program for disabled students. Mechanical engineering focus, dormitory equipped with ramps. The kitchen filled with silence thick as morning cream. One of the best schools in the territory, Luke said finally. They've got a professor who designs adaptive equipment, wheelchairs that climb stairs, braces that help people walk. When? Abel's voice came rough. Fall term, if I want it. May set the letter on the table between them. Such a small thing to hold such large changes. Do you, she asked, want it? Luke looked between them, his parents in all ways that mattered. I don't know, leaving here, leaving you both. That's not what she asked, Abel said gentle. She asked if you wanted. Luke's hands moved restless on his wheels. Yes, but then you go, May said firm. Want is reason enough. That night, Luke excused himself early. May found Abel on the porch, staring at stars like they might rearrange themselves into answers. "It's right," she said, sitting beside him. "Him going." "I know." Abel's voice carried all the weight of that knowing. "Doesn't make it easier." "Easy was never what we signed up for." Abel turned to her then, really looked at her in the lamplight spilling from inside. "What did we sign up for, May?" She considered. 6 months since she'd stepped off that stagecoach. 6 months of building something unnamed but essential. "We signed up for today," she said finally. "And tomorrow, and whatever the day after brings. That all. That everything." Abel reached over, took her hand. First time he'd done that when they weren't dancing around danger or death. His palm was calloused, warm, familiar as her own heartbeat. "I want to ask you something," he said. "But I need you to know you can say no. House is yours regardless. Home is yours regardless. Ask. Would you move to the main bedroom with me?" The words rushed out like water through a broken dam. "Not because of papers or appearances. Because I want to wake up next to you. Want to fall asleep knowing you're there. Want—" He stopped, started again. "I want to love you like you deserve. Not as Sarah's replacement. As May. As yourself. As my wife." May's throat closed tight. "Abel, I know it's not what you came for. Know you've had love and loss, and maybe you're done with both. But May, these months, you've made us whole again. Made me remember why morning's worth meeting." May turned their joined hands, studying how they fit. "James loved me desperate, like I was water and he was burning. Loved me selfish and scared and too hard to hold. I'm not James. No." May met his eyes. "You love quiet. Like you build, one board at a time, each one placed to last. Love that knows sometimes the best thing is just being in the same room, working different tasks, breathing the same air." "Is that enough?" May laughed soft. "Enough. Abel Hart, that's everything." She squeezed his hand. "Yes, to the bedroom, to the loving, to all of it." He kissed her then, careful and thorough, like he was memorizing the shape of possibility. 2 weeks later, they made the trip to Rattlesnake Ridge. Snow still clung to shadows, but the road was clear. Luke directed them from memory of Elias's journal. Following landmarks, the split pine, the rock that looked like a bear, the place where the trail narrowed to nothing. They found the cairn just as Elias had described. Stones stacked careful, keeping vigil over ground that held secrets and sorrow both. Luke had brought wildflower seeds, Indian paintbrush, and prairie roses. "For spring," he said, scattering them over the frozen earth. "So she's not alone." May had brought the blanket, the brown wool with its red cross. She spread it over the stones like a blessing. So she knows her boy remembers. Abel had brought his tools. While May and Luke watched, he carved a marker from good pine, not fancy, but deep cut to last. "Mother," it read, "loved in life, honored in death, forever remembered." They planted it deep, packing stones around the base. The wind sang through the ridge, mournful and clean. "I wish I knew her name," Luke said quiet. "You know what matters," May replied. "That she loved you enough to die trying to save you. That's more than a name. That's a truth." They stood in silence. 3 people bound by choice, honoring a woman bound by blood. Then Luke began to speak. About school, about his plans, about the designs he wanted to create. Talking to the mother he'd never known, like she could hear across whatever distance separated them. "I'll make you proud," he finished. "Both of you. All of you." The ride home was quiet but not sad. Luke had needed this closing of one chapter before the next could begin. Come August, they stood on the platform at Dry Creek Station, Luke in his traveling clothes, new cases holding books and dreams in equal measure. The Institute had sent a guide to help with the journey, a cheerful young man with a limp who'd graduated the program 2 years prior. "I'll write every week," Luke promised. "You'll write when you can," May corrected. We'll be here regardless." Luke hugged Abel hard. No words needed between men who'd chosen each other. Then he turned to May. "Thank you," he said, "for saying yes to that notice board, for staying when it got hard, for—" His voice broke. "For being my mother when you didn't have to be." May pulled him close, breathed in the smell of soap and possibility. "Thank you for letting me." The train whistle screamed. The guide helped Luke board, chair and cases and all, through the window. Luke waved. May and Abel waved back until the train was just smoke on the horizon. "Empty nest," Abel said. "Empty but not ended." May took his arm. "He'll be back. Christmas. Summers. This is home base, not goodbye." They drove back to the ranch as afternoon painted the hills gold. The house stood waiting, solid and sure. Inside, May had left bread rising. Abel had harness to mend. Evening chores that hadn't changed just because their boy had taken his first flight. After supper, May played piano, really played. Not just remembered notes, but actual music. Abel got out his fiddle for the first time in 4 years. They made the walls sing again. Different songs than before, but no less sweet. Later, in the bedroom that was theirs now, May pulled out paper and pen. "What are you writing?" Abel asked from the bed. "Letter to the placement agency in Denver, the one that handles mail-order bride notices." May dipped her pen. "Thought I should tell them they can take down Abel Hart's advertisement. Position's been permanently filled." Abel laughed, rich and full. "How are you going to sign it?" May considered. "Mrs. May Hart, formerly Delaney, currently and contentedly home." She finished the letter, sealed it for morning post. Then she banked the fire and joined her husband, that word still new enough to notice, in the bed they'd learned to share. Outside, wind sang through grass that would green with spring. The dogs sighed in the kitchen, all the sounds of home. In Denver, Luke Hart was learning to navigate new hallways, design new futures. In Dry Creek, Abel and May Hart were learning the rhythms of love built slow and steady as good walls. Somewhere between, in ground marked by stones and seeds, a mother's sacrifice bloomed into a son's success. They'd started as 3 broken people answering notices in desperation. They'd become a family by choice, by trial, by the daily decision to stay. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. It always did. But tonight, in a house that had learned to sing again, 2 people who'd thought love was behind them discovered it had simply been waiting for the right season to grow. The mail-order bride had become a wife. The crippled son had become an engineer. The widowed rancher had become a husband again. And all of them, through grace and grit and refusing to let go, had become exactly what they'd needed all along: home. Thank you for listening to this story from the Wild West. Where are you enjoying this tale from? Please subscribe to the From Wild West channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear where in the world you're listening from and what touched your heart in Abel, May, and Luke's journey.